British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been facing a boisterous parliament for the first time since surviving a no-confidence vote from his own lawmakers. Those backing Boris Johnson were noisy behind him in the House of Commons for his weekly PMQs. The opposition party were critical, as expected. Labour leader Keir Starmer, though, going primarily on the issue of healthcare. Let's listen to some of what Keir Starmer had to say.
Can I just say to both of you, you need to calm down, and there's two over here as well. The four of you could have a very nice cup of tea if you wish. Keir Starmer.
Oh dear. Prime Minister. Dear, dear, dear. Pretending. Mr. Speaker. Pretending no rules were broken. Prime Minister, he chunters on. Pretending no rules were broken didn't work. Pretending the economy is booming didn't work. And pretending to build 40 new hospitals won't work either. They want him to change, but he can't. As always with this Prime Minister, when he's falling short, he just changes the rules and lowers the bar.
I think the two of you need to calm down. So please, we don't want to see an empty front bench, Prime Minister.
Look, we've not only raised the standards in the NHS, we're not only reducing waiting times for those who've had to wait the longest, Mr. Speaker, but what we're doing more fundamentally is doing what the people of this country can see is simple common sense, and that is using our economic strength to invest in doctors and nurses and get people on the wards, get people, giving people their scans and their screens and their tests in a more timely manner and and taking our NHS forward. We are on target, Mr. Speaker, thanks to this government, to recruit 50,000 more nurses. Thanks to the investment, I'm just going to repeat this because he doesn't seem to have heard it so far, thanks to the investments that party opposed. Perhaps he can now explain why they opposed them.
Well, after that confidence vote on Monday, the Prime Minister is being pressurised by some of his MPs to cut taxes. They say it would help rebuild unity in the party and help with the cost of living crisis. Boris Johnson and his Chancellor Rishi Sunak are expected to set out further plans in the coming days on their ideas for boosting economic growth. Let's go to Giles Gibson, who's joining me now live from London. And Giles, given that confidence vote earlier in the week in which over 140 of Boris Johnson's own MPs voted against him, many were saying this was an own goal for Keir Starmer, this PMQs. Did he score?
Well, if we're going to continue with that football analogy, Ollie, we certainly saw some pretty clear tactics from Keir Starmer in terms of how he was approaching this first PMQs since that confidence vote on Monday. We saw Keir Starmer making an initial nod towards that confidence vote, saying that he couldn't make out if the introductory noise was cheers or boos. That, of course, a nod to the fact that almost 150 of Boris Johnson's own MPs voted against him on Monday. However, he very swiftly moved on to issues outside of the Westminster bubble, if you like, to issues of policy and really, as you were saying, focused throughout the entire thing really on healthcare and on the National Health Service. He criticised Boris Johnson and the Conservatives for their record on waiting times in the NHS. The National Health Service, for example, particularly sort of zeroing in on the lengthening, the skyrocketing waiting times when it comes to trying to get cancer care on the NHS in this country. Boris Johnson countered him by criticising Labour's record when they were in office and also sort of raising some of the investments that the Conservatives have brought into the National Health Service. In terms of the atmosphere during this PMQs, we did see the Speaker stepping in a couple of times, telling both leaders, the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister, to calm down a couple of times. But really, I don't think the atmosphere was quite as boisterous, quite as raucous as we might have expected, considering the fact that Boris Johnson was going out there knowing that over 40% of his own MPs had voted against him in that vote just a couple of days ago.
Well, on that note, Giles, one of the things obviously we were therefore looking out for in this PMQ session was whether Boris Johnson would get any particularly tricky questions or even outright attacks from his own Conservative MPs during PMQs. But we didn't really see that.
No, that's right. You were expecting perhaps to see one of those 148 to ask him some sort of a challenging question about, what he's going to do to try and shore up support, what he's going to do to try and draw a line under all of this. I think the issue of taxes is really the issue that a lot of Conservative MPs are focusing in right now as the party tries to move on from that vote. We saw earlier Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, saying very clearly during an interview that he gave a few hours ago, we want to see taxes as low as possible. We've also seen some pretty senior voices joining him over the last few days. The Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, Penny Mordaunt, another minister. So what we're really hoping to see next week when we get that speech from the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, as well as Boris Johnson on the economy, is some sort of indication about what their plans are for taxes. And Conservative MPs will be watching that speech just as closely as we are to see, what they are actually going to roll out, or whether it's just going to be sort of a big picture analysis rather than any specific pledges to cut taxes anytime soon.
Thanks, Giles.